victory over the flesh. Listen to me, child of God. The body of man is the only legalized license that permits him to operate on the earth, but it is also a hindrance for perfection. In as much as the body of man is advantageous because it licenses man to operate on the earth, it is also disadvantageous because it hinders man from attaining perfection. Spirits are not permitted to operate on the earth except they have possessed a human body. That is why Satan is fighting to have you. God is fighting to have you, because whoever is in possession of you determines the one that will control the kingdoms of this world. So if Satan possesses you, Satan will become the god of this world. If God possesses you, God will become the lord of this world, because your body is a treasure to spirit. That is what legalizes the operation of spirit, be it an evil or a godly spirit, to operate on the earth. So spirits are not permitted to operate on the earth except they possess a human body. So the flesh of a man, the body of a man, is a legal license for him to operate in time, in chronos, on the earth. But the flesh has a limitation, and that limitation is that it cannot lead man unto perfection. The only time where we will live unto perfection is when we will spend eternity with God. So long as you are still putting this mortal body, it is impossible to attain the dimensions of perfection, because the flesh is vulnerable to weaknesses and to flaws and to sin. So long as mortality is still part of your makeup, there is a major barrier and hindrance between you and perfection. So we are seeing the advantage of the flesh, and we are also seeing the disadvantage of the flesh. That is why it is very easy to be God than to be man. To be God, you don't need to battle with lust. To be God, you don't need to battle with fornication. To be God, you don't need to have anger issues. To be God, you don't need to become immoral. But when you become man, a treasure in an earthen vessel, you become vulnerable to the attacks of the cares of this world. So you discover out of a sudden a seed of lust begins to germinate in your inner man, and you are doubting, where is that spirit coming from? It is because there is a contention in the spiritual realm to gain access to your body, so that that spirit can legalize its operation on the earth through you as a vessel. When God became man, now God became vulnerable to the weaknesses of the flesh, and God was left with no choice than to help man, because he knows that man in his state cannot help himself. So even when God kept Adam in the Garden of Eden, he placed a restriction: from the tree of knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat. Fine, it's good to place restriction. So one of the reasons why God had to become man is so that he can find out the measure limitation that is hindering man from becoming God. And when he came, he discovered that man now has become limited by reason of the flesh. So God had to orchestrate a system called the throne of grace. He said, yes, I know that by reason of your flesh you are weak, but there is a system that can make up for the flaws of your flesh. It's called the throne of grace. And now therefore let us come boldly to the throne of grace, where we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Before, there was no help, but now God is creating a system for help, because the flesh of man is corruptible, the flesh of man is vulnerable. That is why even in eternity there are crowns and there are thrones that are reserved for men. Those crowns and thrones are not reserved for angels, they are only reserved for men, because angels don't have mortal body. So God reserved the crown and the thrones for man as a means to say, congratulations, you overcame the works of the flesh. Angels will not have crown, because there is nothing attacking them. There is no contention over possessing them. Satan is not interested in them, but Satan is interested in us. Then even with the interest of Satan on us, we still continue in our pursuit with God. Then we overcame on the last day. The Father says unto us, well done, my good and faithful servant. Don't we want a crown and a throne? We live in a world that is full of battles. As a matter of fact, many battles. There are many battles. Some battles are external, some battles are internal. Some battles are without, some battles are within. And we see today, people are fighting battles because nobody loves slavery and captivity. So everybody is looking for a means of escape from oppression. That is why people begin to fight battles. So even when a person realizes and recognizes that he is a victim of an evil foundation, there is a necessity laid on his shoulder to pray until he breaks out from that evil foundation, because no one wants to be disadvantaged and enslaved. Some people are fighting for their rights. Some people are fighting because they feel like they were cheated. Those in the world, they are fighting. Those in church, they are also fighting, because the devil is not asleep. Among all the battles that are in the world, there is no important battle like the battle from within. There are many people who concentrate on the battle from without and they care less on the battle from within. That is why they will end up as a casualty in life. Their life will end up in exasperation and despair, because they are measuring on minors and minoring on measure. So you should understand today that your greatest enemy is not the witch in the village. There is a witch living inside of you. You are not still aware, and that is the reason why your life is not advancing. That is why it is possible that a man can fast for 21 days, then kill the principality in his village, and he thought that it was because of the existence and the reign of that evil priest in his family. That is why he did not prosper. But after he fasted and prayed, God honored his prayer by killing and pronouncing judgment upon the wizard or the witch or whosoever in the family. After, when the person had died, the person discovered that there was still no prosperity in his life. This is a major sign for you to understand that the major hindrance of your life is not the battle that comes from without, it's the battle that comes from within. There is a battle from within, and it's the battle of the flesh and the spirit. It is very easy to encounter God. It is very easy to see God. The mountain has never been a place where people will go and fast to encounter God. Do you fast to see your father who is in your house? You don't, right? So if God now is your father, do you need to fast to see him? If God is your father, do you need to pray to see him? The same way I see my relationship with my father is the same way I see it with God, because as my father is earthly, so God is my father in the spirit. If I don't need to fast to see my father, I don't need to fast to see God. The only yardstick and indices that is required for men, for them to position themselves to have a genuine encounter with God, is purity of heart. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall, not they that pray and fast in the mountain. So you can go and fast on a mountain for 21 days and you will never see God, so long as there is bitterness in your heart, because the yardstick that guarantees men a peep and a glance into the realms of immortality and gives them access to the heavenly counsel is the purity of heart. So if your heart is defiled and corrupt, it becomes a major hindrance and limitation for you not to encounter Elohim. Are you still understanding now? So a man can go to the mountain for 40 days, pray and fast, and come back and his life does not still progress. Then there is one sister in church who is just worshiping God once in a while, but has a pure heart, and every day she keeps having an encounter of Jesus. So you see, you are killing yourself because you want to boycott the principles that matter. So we see the small basic laws and we neglect them, and we emphasize on complex principles and complex formulas. You can kill all the witches in your village, so long as you don't deal with that lust, that bitterness in your heart. It will become the reason why you will never attain the fulfillment of destiny. The flesh does not care about your peace. The flesh does not care about your happiness. The flesh does not care about your joy. All what he cares is that just be bitter, just be angry, just be in enmity. That's what the flesh cares. If you take this decision today, your family will become better. The decision of impeaching the flesh and enthroning the spirit in your life, your family will become better, your marriage will become better. And I prophesy this day, let the works of the flesh in your life come to an end.
Amen.